Hello, honor chemistry students. This is Mrs. Snyder, and this is a web video on the introduction to chemical reactions. We're going to learn two major things in this video. We're going to learn about the symbols that you can see in a chemical reaction and how to go from words to symbols and symbols to words. But first, I want to talk about what you remember from the first day we had chemistry class. We talked about the 5 signs or 5 indicators that there is a chemical reaction happening. If you recall, 1 is a color change, 2 is a temperature change. So if the temperature goes up or down, that's an indication of a chemical reaction. If there's bubbles that appear, that's an indication that gas was formed. A precipitate appearing, that would be an indication. And also the last one is a light. So if you see light, as you can see in this picture here, forming, that's also a sign of a chemical reaction. Well, in a chemical reaction, it is a process that involves the creation of new substances. And we use a shorthand notation called the chemical equation to represent the components of a chemical reaction. And what we mean is that we would write a chemical formula, and we would see that, if you remember from your 9th grade course, this is called the reactants are on the left-hand side of the arrow, the products are on the right-hand side of the arrow. And really the important thing to understand about a chemical reaction is that we did not form new elements. Bonds are broken, and they're simply just rearranged into making new components. But you will notice it still has carbon on each side. There's still hydrogen on each side of the balance of this arrow, and there's still oxygen on each side of this arrow. We didn't all of a sudden make up a new element and you see barium over here and you don't see any barium over there. That's impossible. Because in a chemical reaction, it is breaking the bonds and just a rearrangement of new components. So when we're writing chemical reactions, there's some symbols that you need to know. A plus sign separates 2 reactants or 2 products. This arrow sign represents yield, so it separates reactants from products. And then new for you this term may be that you'll notice that there's going to be states of matter behind every chemical reaction. So when you take a look at something like an S, this S would be in parentheses, and that would represent that the compound is in solid form. An L in parentheses would represent that that is in liquid form, the compound is. A G for gas, and an AQ for aqueous form. That means that something is dissolved in water. A triangle indicates that heat is supplied to the reaction. And the last thing you may see is that you may see a compound either above or below an arrow. So if you see like manganese above the arrow, that would indicate that it is a catalyst. And a catalyst is something that is used to speed up a reaction. So one of the first goals that we're going to have is, can you go from words to writing chemical equations? So here's an example that I say iron solid reacts with oxygen gas to produce iron 3 oxide solid. So if I asked you to go from words to the symbols, you would write iron, and then since it's a solid, I'm going to put an S behind it. Reacts with means that there's going to be another reactant, so I put my plus sign. Oxygen gas. Now, if you remember, oxygen is a diatomic, so it has to be O2, and it's a gas, so I'm going to put that as a gaseous form. To produce iron 3 oxide solid. So now I'm going to write the formula for iron 3 oxide. I write the cation first, followed by the anion. I know that iron has a +3 charge, oxygen is a -2 charge, so that means I have to write this as Fe2O3, and it would be a solid. And this is how I just wrote from words to the chemical symbol. Notice I'm going to put down the word not balanced because this equation is not balanced yet. We will learn how to balance a chemical equation on the next slide, or the next video, not on the next slide. But that will be happening in the next video on this page. What if you had something like sodium bicarbonate reacts with aqueous hydrochloric acid to produce aqueous sodium chloride, liquid water, and carbon dioxide gas? What I'd like for you to do now is to pause this video and write this down. See if you will get the same things that I do. But what I want you to do is pause the video, write down your response to this, and then turn the video back on. Check to see if you got the same things that I did. Good luck. Pause now. Okay, welcome back. How did you do? Does your equation look like mine? This is representing solid sodium bicarbonate plus aqueous hydrochloric acid to produce, so that's going to be this arrow here, aqueous sodium chloride, liquid water, and carbon dioxide gas. And again, this equation may or may not be balanced. I just didn't evaluate it, so that's why I put down not balanced. We will be doing that in another lesson. All right, finally, my hope is that you're going to be able to go from an equation to words as well. So when it says write the following equation in words, how would you write this? I'd like for you to pause this video, give it a shot, and then when you're done, turn this back on, see how you did. All right, so what I wrote is solid calcium carbonate will decompose to produce solid calcium oxide plus carbon dioxide gas. This is a classification of a reaction called a decomposition reaction. If you don't have will decompose and you just said to will produce, that would be acceptable right now with that level of learning, or with the level of learning that you're at right now. So hopefully this video was helpful. Hopefully you know how to go from symbols to words and words to symbols, and you understand the components of symbols for a chemical reaction. Good luck.